Story 1. My wife will tell me the next day when I do this. Her favorite story to tell is that she woke up in the middle of the night to find me slowly walking out of our bedroom. Wife, are you okay? What are you doing? Me. There's somebody downstairs in the kitchen, unrolling the tinfoil. Wife, okay. What's your plan? Me. I'm going to stop them. Wife. Shall we get a bit more sleep then both go down together? Me. Okay. And I went back to bed. Subsequent investigations found a small plastic bag on the floor, near my head, being rustled by the movement of the curtain, the window being open. Story 2. Not my current partner, but my ex-boyfriend sometimes talks in his sleep, and the funniest story was this one time I was still up reading a book and hadn't noticed that he was already asleep next to me. Suddenly, he bursts out, "Will you just give me the yogurt already, Shannon?" in a flawless British accent and scares me. We're both German, and none of our first languages include English. We didn't know a Shannon. He's lactose intolerant. Story 3. My girl woke up one night and said, "Did you find your rocks?" I asked her what she was talking about, and she said, "I don't know, I'm just trying to make conversation," and promptly went back to sleep. She has no recollection of this. Story 4. My boyfriend woke me up the other day by gently putting his fingers in my mouth, and I kept moving my head out of the way until eventually I was like, "Can you stop that?" He then sounded genuinely upset and asked why I woke him up, as he was having a really nice dream about feeding a deer. Brilliant. Story 5. Sigh, my boyfriend either recites postcodes because he's a delivery driver or calls the dog in his sleep. So, either he is upset that no one is responding to his postcode talk, or I get a 30-kilogram dog flying onto my body. Story 6. My aunt likes to tell the story about her and my cousin sharing a hotel room one time. My aunt woke up having to pee and found my cousin sitting up in bed with her arms folded across her abdomen, kind of rocking back and forth and giggling quietly. When my aunt asked her what she was doing, my cousin said, "I'm holding a baby and it has an adult smile." I found this story deeply unsettling. Story 7. Once my ex said, "Horse." That's all. Just horse, but with a sense of urgency. The same ex told me I once sat straight up in bed and mumbled, "Jesus, Grandma, you scared the shit out of me." I had been dreaming that I was in bed at night, and my grandma, still alive at the time, wandered into the room and stood at the end of the bed with a blank stare. Story 8. So this one time while my significant other was sleeping, she randomly reached over and started to pet my leg softly. When I asked her what she was doing, she looked at me like I was stupid and said, "What does it look like?" "I'm petting this fluffy baby penguin." Then she paused for a second, patted my leg again, and blurted out, "Wait, this isn't a penguin." I have never laughed so hard over someone talking in their sleep. Thank you for the awards, kind strangers. Story 9. Fantastic sleep songs with lyrics that are utterly bizarre. My two absolute favorites have been 1. "Oh, whoa, whoa, it's a corner cat." 2. "Obey my rules, and you'll always be a country cowboy." Repeated about 5 times and finished with a "yeah." Story 10. My wife started screaming one night that she was lost in the local grocery store, and that no matter where she went, she couldn't find her way out. I asked her if she had tried checking out at the cash registers. She then looked at me and said in her most sincere voice, "That's why you are the smartest person I know," and she rolled over and fell back asleep. Story 11. One night, my boyfriend woke me up in the middle of the night, tapping me on my shoulder. He put his finger on his mouth, whispered, "Shush" to me, then pointed at the door and told me, "I can hear something, don't move." Predictably, I nearly panicked. All the worst possible scenarios crossed my mind, and the moment of silence after he shushed me felt like hours. Then he started waving his hands and talking about Tetris, the twirlies, and making sure we don't align, and that's how I learned my boyfriend talks in his sleep. Story 12. Heck yes. Please take a seat. My wife was an avid sleep talker for a long time, and her midnight announcements ranged from simple single words to elaborate speeches. The ones that really stand out to me are waking up in the middle of the night to her suddenly sitting violently up in bed, throwing back the covers and screaming, "Tarantula! That will make you very awake very quickly," whispering my name repeatedly, which woke me up so she could share in a hushed, cautious voice. "There is an alligator in here." When I expressed my concern, playing along, she told me, still whispering, that it's okay. It has been here before. But my all-time favorite was when, from her perspective as she later explained, she was dreaming that I was playfully sneaking up on her and she saw me and was calling me on it. From my perspective, my wife sat up in the middle of the night, staring into the darkest corner of the room, and said repeatedly in a soft sing-song voice, "I see you." My flipping blood froze. Too long, didn't read. My wife is terrifying. Edit 1. Thanks for the awards. I am glad this has managed to make some people laugh or cry at work. Story 13. My grandfather was a hard sleep talker, and my grandmother has a funny story. One day, my grandfather, while sleeping, was saying, "Do I punch this guy?" My grandmother replied, "Yeah, punch him." Then my grandfather, in his sleep, punched her. Story 14. I'm the sleep talker here. Got this from my wife the next morning. Me sits bolt upright. They're coming. Everything's ready. Wife, sleepily. Huh? Me, they're coming. Everything's ready. Wife, they're coming? Me, Wife, but everything's ready? Me, yes. Wife, sounds like we're okay then. Me, comically flops back down and instantly goes back to sleep. Story 15. Years ago, my wife was mumbling in her sleep and seemed a bit upset. I wanted to comfort her without waking her up too much. So I said, "Honey, you're fine. Do you know where you are?" She slugged me in the arm and said, "I'm in a place where punch buggies are seen first." She then rolled over and muttered to herself, "Chugga chugga chugga buggy," and went back to sleep. She didn't remember a thing the next morning. Story 16. My mom sleepwalks sometimes. When she was in the middle of her residency, she came into my room in the middle of the night and sharply asked, "Did you give the patient her dose of medication like I asked you to 15 minutes ago?" I groggily replied, "Who? What?" She just huffed and said, "Well, I guess that answers my question," before turning around and leaving, without closing the door, of course. She didn't remember a thing about it the next morning. Story 17. He got up, went into the kitchen, and ate one bite of a mini pecan pie. No fork, just a straight bite. Then apparently remembered he hates pecan pie and left it stacked neatly on the little box. Another time he sat up and stared straight ahead at the wall. Didn't respond to me asking what was wrong. He stood up, walked into the wall, then stood there like he was contemplating the barrier. He just backed up exactly as he came, sat down, and swung back into bed like nothing happened. That was creepy. Story 18. I have had funnier experiences than this one, but cannot remember exactly what was said. Most recently, though, my boyfriend scoots over to me to be big spoon/little spoon, and I snuggle in, thinking that's all it was. Then he gets real close to my ear and whispers, "Just so you know, there's something in the closet, like a cartoon turtle." I did my best not to burst out laughing and just said, "Okay, honey." When he woke up, he had no memory of it whatsoever, of course. Story 19. When I was a child, about 5 years old, I was sleeping in my parents' bed for some reason, probably a storm. Mom was awake, Dad and I were asleep. Suddenly, my father and I had this cross-sleep conversation while my mom lay between us, quietly freaked out. "Dad, you better not take my toys." I muttered angrily. "Okay, I won't," my father responded. "Don't even touch them." Okay. Not particularly scintillating conversation, but notable for the fact that we were both asleep and still responding to each other. It was like making Amazon Alexa and Apple Siri talk to each other. Story 20. My boyfriend had his tonsils removed a while back, so he was on some pain-reducing drugs that kept him sedated and, in his words, made him a dumbass. He had a conversation in his sleep with me about how I shouldn't trust leprechauns because they conned him out of gold coins by giving him foil-wrapped chocolate coins instead. Also, he said not to trust Irish people because they were honorary leprechauns. Story 21. Not my partner, but my younger brother and I used to share a room and used bunk beds. One night I heard him mumble, I don't create the weather, I just predict it. Story 22. My brother did that in the middle of the night. He would get up, go into the living room, say some nonsense to our parents, and go back to bed. It was actually pretty creepy the first times because he was like, they are in the walls. They are. Story 23. My mom used to wake me up for school because I would sleep through my alarms. She has a bunch of stories about weird things I have said to her right before waking. He's not here. Check down the street. Just put it on the roof and it will blow away. Story 24. Not my partner, but my younger brother says the most ridiculous stuff. One time he said, get off my treasure in a pirate voice. Another time he said, get your hands off my fish. Story 25. My mom jumped my dad because, in her dream, he was a thief who stole an old lady from the hospital, so she had to catch him. I slept on it for a night, and while reading it again, I realized it was the other way around. She thought she had to protect the old lady, so she decided to jump on her to protect her from the thief. Then she woke up on top of my dad. Story 26. My girlfriend was sleepwalking one night. Her. Can we get that done this week? Me. Huh. Her. Can we get that done this week? Me. Sorry. Her. Can we get that done this week, please? Me. Okay. Her. Thanks. Story 27. Not a partner, but at 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from my friend in the next street. My 6-year-old daughter had just knocked on her door and then walked in mumbling about not being able to do her sums. I raced up there, walked home with her, put her back to bed, and she didn't wake up or remember a thing the next day. By the next night, our house was like Fort Knox. Story 28. He started shouting that he couldn't feel his left arm. I pointed out he was pinching his pillow, not his arm. He then freaked out that he had lost his arm. I pointed out his arm was under his pillow. He said okay and started snoring. Took me another hour to get back to sleep. He didn't wake up at all. Edit. Blimey. Went to bed and this went crazy overnight. Thanks to those who reached out in concern to check on his health. He participated in a sleep study and it was found to be stress-related, luckily not sleep apnea. Also, he did wake up, just not until morning. Didn't realize I'd phrased it in such a way that people thought he'd died. Story 29. My girlfriend does a bit of sleep talking. I mentioned a sheep character from Animal Crossing, Dom, and she sounded like she was about to cry, saying, he doesn't have hands, which, to be fair, he doesn't. Story 30. One time, my ex was asleep and started to snore progressively louder. He startled himself half awake, and he said out loud to himself, shut up, I'm sleeping. Oh, I snorted my drink through my nose. Story 31. Oh man, not my partner but my brother. I was watching The Exorcist with my dad and my brother, and at the beginning of the movie, some archaeologists find a little statue that releases the devil or something. Anyway, we finished the movie, and my brother falls asleep on the other couch, so my dad and I just watch another movie. The second that movie ended, my brother sat bolt upright and walked to the middle of the room asking, where's the statue? And we're like, what statue? And he's going, the statue, the statue. Eventually, he makes a motion with his hands like he's picking something up, moves it over about a foot, and then puts this imaginary statue back down. He went right back to sleep again after. My dad and I just looked at each other like, what just happened? But we got a great laugh out of it. Story 32. My boyfriend once blurted out, you're putting bread in my ears. In his sleep, mumbled something unintelligible, and then followed up with, and I'm becoming a sandwich. Still makes me laugh whenever I remember. Story 33. My roommate during freshman year of college was a sleepwalker and sleep talker. We were in the freshman dorms, which had small rooms. I woke up one night and saw him sitting straight up on the side of the bed, just staring at me with eyes fully open, talking gibberish about golf. He was going on about Phil Mickelson or something similar. I have to be honest, it was creepy because he was staring directly into my eyes. The next morning, I told him about it, and he just laughed and said, sorry, I tend to do that from time to time. Story 34. I'd be the king of Monaco. My wife said this one night out of nowhere. The funniest part was her tone of voice, proud and assertive, like she was really sure of her claim to the throne. Anyway, the joke's on her. Monaco is a principality. Wow. Thanks everyone. I've never had a post or comment get above 10 upvotes before, and definitely never had any awards. Story 35. My boyfriend sat bolt upright in bed in the middle of the night. He doesn't usually sleep talk. Him. There's a thing over there. Me. Absolutely terrified. What thing? Him. Upgrade. Me. Relieved but very confused. What kind of upgrade? Him. Bag. Me. Oh, a bag upgrade. Okay. Carry more stuff. Him. Yeah. He then flopped down and began snoring, letting me slowly recover from the massive spike in heart rate. Your boyfriend sitting up in a dark room and looking at the corner saying, "There's a thing over there," is not fun. It turns out he'd just been playing too many games. Story 36. Not a partner, but in military training in school, I often took the night shift for guard duty. The number of sleepwalkers and talkers is way higher than I expected. It is straight creepy when you have to walk down the halls with a covered flashlight listening to big grown men mumbling and lashing out in their sleep. What takes the cake, though, is that often sleepwalkers will just kind of stop randomly. So you'll be walking along in the pitch black darkness, and suddenly there is just a person standing there. Eyes generally closed or worse open, just kind of listing to the side or leaning against a bedpost or wall. After I'd suppress all the swear words I was about to yell out, there wasn't much to do but gently prod them along back to their bed. For all the randomness that is being part of the military, I really didn't expect one of my jobs to be gently tucking my fellow soldiers back into their beds.